Good day to be out. People are pretty thinned out over here, but I'm gonna go back up to the waterfall here in a bit, and hopefully there won't be a million people there. So I'm trying to take some pictures. So this may not really be the most popular viewpoint when we talk about photography in conjunction with the idea of something like hunting, but I really do feel like it's a very similar exercise. You're out hunting in the world for the images that you find beautiful. I mean, hey, it's cool, but there is kind of there's a hunter aspect to it. I'm going to hunt and look for, same word, basically hunting, but I'm hunting. I'm looking for light. I'm looking for compositional elements. There's numerous targets out here that I want to try to capture and put together in an image that I can share with people, because the parts of the world that I think are beautiful, maybe other people will too, and it's cool. I like to make something. I like the idea of posterity. I like having videos of myself when I'm a young man, potentially when my kid is much older and I'm a much older guy, he can see his dad bopping around in the woods taking pictures. I think that's really cool, and it's a great thing to come out and just try to capture some of those scenes and make images of things that you experience, and it tells your story. So not always quite so deep as this, but I go there quite a bit. So I'm here at Devil's Hop Yard State Park in Connecticut, and if you watched the last video that I made, I was talking about how when you see a scene that strikes you, that's something that's resonating with a part of you, and that's an image that you should capture, because that's going to be an expression of your vision of the world, your artistic vision, your voice, if you will. So I've got this scene here, and it's just a little bit narrow in the crop. So what I'm going to have to do is either change lenses to a wide angle lens, but first, before I do that, I'm going to try the other alternative, which is to just back up a little bit and see if the image still composes correctly. And if it does, then we're in good shape, but if not, then we're going to have to go with a wide angle lens. Let's find out. Well, I'm in luck. I backed up just enough, and I'm actually behind this tree. I can't go any further, but it's just far enough to use my 18mm Tamron lens so that I don't have to go with a wide angle lens and start to suffer the effects of distortion, because this is really filling the frame is what's happening here. I don't really have a foreground that I want to pull out specifically. I just want to capture this whole scene, and I want to get some of what's going on above the rocks so that I can show depth. I want to be at probably f14 for this picture, because I want everything nice and sharp. I don't need it to be really bright. The light's kind of flat. It's overcast, but it's working for what I need, and I think it's going to be a good image. So, radical. Okay, so I moved, and my camera is way up. My tripod is probably 7 feet right now. It's an aluminum Swarovski optic tripod with just kind of a generic ball head on it, but it gets up there, man, let me tell you. And sometimes you need to get high up, so I was probably 4 feet that way when I first was composing this image, but as I said, I didn't want to put the wide angle lens on because that was going to distort the image, and I didn't really want to do that. I like the way it looks just with my own eyes, man. I want to capture it with just a plain, basic, kind of like flat lens with no distortion. I don't have any primes with me, so I use the Tamron 18-200. I think it's an f3.5 lens at its maximum aperture size, but really pleased with how this came out. So as you can see, I had to back up. So sometimes you back up, don't compromise. You may need to move around the landscape a little bit to capture whatever you want, but things to be cognizant of are, like, I could have just kept standing there trying to capture this image the way I saw it with a focal length that wasn't working because I wasn't getting everything. So what could I do? I could do a pano, or I could just move back, maybe jack my tripod way up in the air like it is now, and I can capture the image the way I intend to capture it, because certain elements need to be separated. There's a cool pointy rock up there. Let me flip you around. Right up here, this cool pointy rock, and it's already a busy forest scene, but I needed that rock to be separate from the trunk of this tree. I didn't want to look like they were coming together. It's already kind of hard to picture, so I may need to go down and take this again, but I do want to have that point sort of separated, because that's one of the points of interest. Also, there's this, let me adjust you. There's this little hollow in this tree over here. That's kind of a nice element in the foreground, sort of toward the side, and then you have the woods going back. And I love the way this composition works. This is one of the examples of a time where you have to fill the frame to make the composition work, because you're in the woods, you have no choice. There's no sky, so it's a different thought processes. So generally in photography, you do want to make an attempt to fill the frame. You only have so much space to tell a story, and that's where we get into our rules for composition, the rule of thirds, the golden spiral, or leading lines, using those kind of compositional elements, negative space, balancing, keeping your horizon straight. In the forest, there's a lot going on, so you're not really, it's going to be a little bit more challenging because you have to sort of make sure everything flows and works together. It's such a busy place. I don't have a big sky that's dramatic, to use as, a compositional element. So, and where I'm just having to focus on the foreground. There's a clear distinction between foreground, in front of you, the ground, and then your midground, and then you have your sky as you go into the distance of your picture here. It can be a flat situation because you are filling the frame. There is depth happening, so you do want to try to use depth of field when you're shooting in the forest, whenever possible, unless you're just shooting a close-up subject. But it's always a fun challenge, and just be on the lookout for those things that you see that stand out to you and try to frame them up and shoot them. That's all there is to it. Now just some post-processing. I think we'll be good to go. Some nice stuff. And this is just another variation of that same scene that I was looking at earlier. I also liked this, and I took another variation over here to the left side because that point on the rock that I was talking about earlier, let's see if we can take a look. I really like the way this looked too, so I also captured this scene. So I took one, it's going to be kind of a series of this small area. We've got one master photograph, if you will, and then I've got this composition on the left side, and then on the right side I have this composition over here. It's nice when you feel like you run across a composition that has, or rather an image, call it whatever you want, that has a lot of strong elements to it on the left side and the right side kind of throughout. If I wanted to, I could probably take a picture of this path up the middle and just sort of focus on that leading up to that trail marker on the tree, which I'll end up photoshopping out later. So 3 for the price of 1. Good deal. Love it. So I got a couple shots with the tripod, but then I decided to take it off the tripod, put on my wide angle lens, and do some handheld stuff. Don't ever forget to do the handheld stuff, just because you can be a lot more creative. It's cool to walk around and just fluidly see what you can find. That's how you're going to find the neat new perspectives that maybe you can take and set your tripod up with later. So it's cool to take your camera off and just sort of hunt around for compositions, because you'll look at things differently when you have a camera in your hand, and you'll walk by something and be like, whoa, hey, that looks cool. Let me check that out real quick. Jack up the ISO, who cares? Make that shutter a little bit bigger so you can get the shot, turn your vibration control on, and just snap it. They don't all have to be incredible, setups. Every picture we take doesn't have to do that. So I came here today to shoot waterfalls. I didn't shoot a single waterfall. I just found this scene. I took a couple of shots up by the river, but I found this scene today, and I just stayed here. It's just like there's no reason to leave. So it's getting dark. I gotta walk out now. We'll see what I see when I get back to the waterfall, but I'm not too concerned about it. I can always come back later. So off we go. If you found this helpful at all, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and think about subscribing and give me a like. I appreciate it. And you can check me out on Instagram at Journeys of Mike. See you later. A little bit of patience, and now I have the whole place to myself.